Hello, and welcome to the Bundesliga Beard, a show about the German Bundesliga. With coronavirus ravaging and devastating people worldwide, and also sports, the Bundesliga is poised to be one of the first leagues to come back to action this weekend. As games begin on Saturday, May 16th, they will be played in front of empty stadiums. So whether you're new to the Bundesliga and just looking to catch up on what happened, or if you're a die-hard, longtime Bundesliga fan who just feels like it's been ages since the last time you saw your favorite team hit the pitch, this is the Bundesliga Beard, here to give you what you need. So a quick recap, the last Bundesliga match was actually played on March 11th. That was between Borussia Mönchengladbach and 1. FC Köln. It was actually the first Bundesliga game in history played in front of an empty stadium. You can go watch the replay on YouTube. It's kind of awkward, but it is going to be the new norm. Borussia Mönchengladbach won that game 2-1. So since that was the first ever Bundesliga game played in front of empty stadiums, it is a little bit of an indication of what we can expect going forward, as that seems to be the new norm with this pandemic. So to recap the season, we've played 25 matches across the Bundesliga with the exception of two teams that have only played 24, Werder Bremen, Eintracht Frankfurt. They have rescheduled their match for the 2nd of June. And with 25 matches played for most of the teams, it's no surprise, the current leader is FC Bayern München with 55 points. Though they had a struggle at the beginning of the season and actually sacked their manager and replaced him with Hansi Flick, the team does find themselves at the top of the Bundesliga once again late in the season. But it is a much closer race than it has been in many recent years. The second place team is arch rival Borussia Dortmund, sitting 4 points behind the Bavarian Giants with 51 points. 1 point behind them in third place are the newcomers to the top of the Bundesliga. They finished second last year and one of the hottest teams in the league, though controversial. It's RB Leipzig, sitting there with 50 points, 5 points clear of the lead, and in that third coveted Champions League position. The fourth team, Borussia Mönchengladbach, they started out the season very strong and are still in contention. With 49 points, they're only 6 points behind the Bavarian Giants in the title race, and they still have one of those Champions League spots. If we take a look at the bottom of the table, newly promoted SC Paderborn finds themselves carrying the lantern, as they say, at the very bottom with only 16 points. So they are really going to have to pick it up here in the last about quarter of the season if they want to make sure that they don't end up back in the second Bundesliga once again. An interesting turn at the bottom of the table is Werder Bremen, but they are also one of the most storied clubs in all of the Bundesliga. They've only been relegated one time, that was in 1980-81, and then they quickly bounced back and were back in the Bundesliga a few years after that. So this is a team that has been in the Bundesliga almost their entire history, and they find themselves sitting 17th in a guaranteed relegation position. They do have an extra game that they will play. However, they are really going to need to pick it up because otherwise they're going to find themselves in the second Bundesliga. Now, SV Werder Bremen is an interesting story because they won a Bundesliga title not that long ago, 2003, 2004. Less than 20 years ago, they were one of the top Bundesliga teams. And if you look at that, they won that title in 2004, and the next 4 seasons, they either finished second or third in the Bundesliga. So the drop-off here has been pretty drastic. So they are also, along with SC Paderborn, really going to have to pick things up if they want to make sure that they are back in the Bundesliga next season. Also in a tough spot right now is Fortuna Düsseldorf. They find themselves in 16th position, which would mean if they finish the season today, which, who knows, with coronavirus, it could just end. They would have to play the third place team in the second Bundesliga in a relegation playoff to see who goes up, who stays up, who goes down, who stays down. And currently the third place team in the second Bundesliga is Hamburg. That's right, Hamburger SV, one of the most legendary German teams in the Bundesliga history. They're eager. This is the first time they were ever relegated down to the second Bundesliga, so they are eager to try and get back up to the top flight of German football. So if it does come down to that, Düsseldorf find themselves in a tough position and are going to have to, as all these teams at the bottom, they now have a new opportunity to try to get a fresh start after this coronavirus pandemic shut down the Bundesliga for 2 months. They now have a great opportunity to try and pick things up going forward. So if we take a look ahead at this first batch of games, I'm so excited, and I'm sure you are too. There's some real barn burners, as they say, in the early set of matches. There's 5 games that will be taking place in the early time slot on Saturday, May 16th. I think the headline match, everyone agrees, is Borussia Dortmund, FC Schalke. This is a rivalry. This is a derby match. This is also number 2 against number 6. Now, sometimes you might think, oh, okay, well, these teams are separated by, it looks like, what is that, 14 points. There's 14 points between these two teams. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot going on there, but Borussia Dortmund, they're still chasing that title, okay? They're 4 points out. If they can get those 3 points against their rivals, it'll go a long way to trying to get them to that top position. On the flip side, you look at FC Schalke. They're in the 6th position right now, which is a Euro League spot. So they really want to make sure they keep that. And they're only 1 point ahead of Wolfsburg. They're only 1 point ahead of Freiburg and 2 points ahead of Hoffenheim. So you have 4 teams right there really competing for that last Euro League spot. One ahead of them is in the 5th position is Bayer Leverkusen, but they're also 10 points ahead of Schalke. So it doesn't look like they're going to be able to catch the 5th place team, Bayer Leverkusen, but they are really battling with a couple other teams, actually 3 other teams, to try and get that last EuroLeague spot. So a lot to play for. If you look at the top 9 teams in the Bundesliga, the top half, they're all either competing for a EuroLeague spot, Champions League spot, or even the championship. I mean, there's a real 4, maybe 5 team race for the championship for the Bundesliga title right now. The top 5 teams are separated by 8 points. The top 4 only by 6 points, and the top 3 only by 5 points. So it's really going to come down to the wire, and that's why this match, I think that's the highlight, is Borussia Dortmund, FC Schalke. This is going to be real interesting to see. The other game I want to look at, we're going to go through all of them, but RB Leipzig, SC Freiburg, sort of a similar situation to the Dortmund-Schalke game in that you have a team, RB Leipzig, 3rd place, really still in contention for the title, trying to get things started here in this last stretch of the season, versus a team in SC Freiburg. Look, they're only 1 point out of a EuroLeague spot, okay? So they're really close to it, okay? They have a shot to get it. They have everything to play for. So this is going to be a real interesting one as well. You go to the next game on the docket that I'm looking at is Hoffenheim, one of those 4 teams competing with Freiburg and Wolfsburg and Schalke to try and get in the Europa League. They are, however, 2 points shy, but still within striking distance. So if they can get things started against Hertha Berlin, it's going to look good for them, okay? Now, Berlin, to me, I look at them and I say they're in a tough position, okay? They're 13th right now in the Bundesliga. It looks like they're only 6 points ahead of the 16th spot, Fortuna Düsseldorf. So that's only 2 wins, okay? So 6 points separating them from relegation. Look, they're not even the best team in their own city right now. So they are really going to have to make sure they buckle down and try to get some points here so that they can stay in the Bundesliga and don't find themselves in one of those relegation positions, because they are awfully close to it right now. Up next, I do want to look at that 16th place team, Fortuna Düsseldorf, SC Paderborn. These are 2 of the 3 worst teams in the Bundesliga, but that's still exciting at the end of the season because both of these teams know that they need points. If they want to try to find a way out of the relegation position, they are going to need to get some points, especially out of this first match. This is a game that I think both clubs look at, man, we could win this, okay? We could get 3 points. We could elevate ourselves going into these last 8 or 9 matches of the season, and maybe, just maybe, keep themselves in the Bundesliga going into next season. So even though that is kind of a cellar-dweller matchup there between Düsseldorf and Paderborn, it's still going to be exciting. It's at the same time as the Dortmund game and the Leipzig game and some of the other games, so I don't know if that's the one you're going to want to watch, but it's going to be interesting to see who wins and how that kind of shapes up the rest of their season going forward. Now, the other match I want to talk about is the last batch of the early games on Saturday, and that's FC Augsburg against VfL Wolfsburg. Now, Wolfsburg, as we talked about, they are sitting there 1 point behind Schalke, really still an opportunity to get in that European competition. Augsburg, on the other hand, not looking so hot. They're 1 point behind Berlin. So we kind of have a similar situation with the Hoffenheim-Berlin matchup there between Augsburg and Wolfsburg. You're really just looking at 2 teams on different sides of the spectrum. One team trying to get into European competition. The other one trying to make sure that they don't get relegated. So, again, it's really interesting. If you look at all the docket of games this weekend, every game has some intrigue. Every team has something to play for. Nothing is locked up at any end of the table. I mean, there's only a few teams that I would look at here and say, they probably won't get European competition next year and they probably won't get relegated. But other than a few teams, everyone else has something to play for. So that's what's really going to make it exciting. Now, if we go into the there's only one late game on Saturday. That's Eintracht Frankfurt against Borussia Mönchengladbach. Again, I talked about it. Borussia Mönchengladbach, they started out the season amazing. They were at the top of the table early in the season. Now they find themselves fourth, but they're still within striking distance. Like I said, 6 points. It's only 2 wins. They can make that difference up, but it's going to have to start right now. What makes it so interesting is all the momentum really is out of the window, okay? None of these teams have momentum right now. They're all going to have to sort of build that back up. So when I look at Borussia Mönchengladbach, this is a great opportunity. They're playing Eintracht Frankfurt, who, they're sitting there 28 points just on goal differential ahead of Berlin. They're also kind of fighting to make sure that they stay up in the Bundesliga. Now, obviously, only 2 to 3 teams will get relegated, so it's not like all these teams who are struggling will be relegated. Obviously not, but there's a lot of teams that find themselves in that precarious position where if they don't pick it up, it could get dicey for them. So that's going to be fun as well. That's going to be really fun to see how Borussia Mönchengladbach bounce back, to see if they can get things going. Or are they going to fall off? Because if they do, they might find themselves not even playing in the EuroLeague next year if they really fall off. But I don't think they'll be. I mean, they're 12 points ahead of Schalke right now, who is the 6th place team. So I don't think that they will fall quite that far. If we look ahead at the Sunday matchup, Erster FC Köln, there's 2 Sunday matchups. The first one, Erster FC Köln, Erster FSV Mainz 05. Again, this is interesting from a couple different angles. Mainz they are 4 points out of a relegation position. They are 15th right now, so they're struggling, okay? They're not in a good position. They need to make sure that they can get some points right now. This is a game that I think they could win, okay? Erster FC Köln, though hot, they were one of the hotter teams before coronavirus sort of shut things down. But again, so they don't have to deal with that momentum. Erster FC Köln, they have to get that momentum going right now. They're sitting here 10th, sort of middle of the Bundesliga, 32 points, 5 points out of a EuroLeague spot. So, again, still possible for them to get that, but they're going to have to really put together some good performances here over the next few weeks. On the other hand, you look at a team like Mainz. If they let it fall, they could find themselves relegated pretty quickly. They're not that far out of that position. The other game on Sunday, the headlining game, I would say on Sunday, is Erster FC Union Berlin, who's had a surprise season. They've been phenomenal. I talked about how Hertha Berlin is not the best team in their own city. It's because Erster FC Union Berlin is the best team in their city. And for the first time, they actually played each other in a Bundesliga match. And the newly promoted team was the one who actually won. So I think that's going to be fascinating to see how they play out the rest of the season. Right now they're sitting 11th in the table. They have 30 points. So, if you want to talk about European competition, 7 points out of it, I don't know if they'll be able to make that up. But, they're also not in terrible danger of relegation. They do have a tough one, though. They have to play right now the league leaders, the 7-time defending champs, FC Bayern München. This is going to be tough for them, okay? But it's also an opportunity for them to try and get things going. And this is going to be a test for FC Bayern München as well, because I think, hey, look, all the momentum's out of the is just gone, okay? You don't have any of the momentum that they had in 2020. Look, they came into 2020 and were dominating, okay? Picking up 3 points in almost every single game. Now that momentum's out the window, what are you going to do, okay? And they got to play on the road. It's going to be interesting to see. I think they probably will come out with the 3 points, but, like I said, it's tough to say. Now, going into the Monday matchup, last game of this weekend, it's SV Werder Bremen against Bayer 04 Leverkusen. And this is going to be fun because, like I talked about, Werder Bremen finds themselves in a position that they are not normally in. They're going to be very close to relegation if they don't pick it up. They have an opportunity at home to try and pick up some points, but it is against a tough opponent. Bayer Leverkusen, I mean, this is a team who, like I said, you could think they're still in title contention, sort of, 8 points out of it. It's not unthinkable that they could get in there. Even closer for them, though, they are right on the cusp of Europa League, Champions League. So if they put together a good stretch here in the coming weeks, they could get themselves into the Champions League. That's what they're shooting for, okay? So they have a lot to play for as well. Both teams do, which is what makes the end of any football season, any soccer season, always makes it exciting. Teams at the bottom trying not to get relegated. Teams at the top fighting for European competition, fighting for titles, all of that. And if you look at it, this is one of the closest Bundesliga races in recent memory. I went through yesterday and I looked at the 7 straight titles that Bayern München won, and last season was actually the closest they had in a long, long time. They only topped RB Leipzig by 3 points. But this season is really shaping up to be exciting because there's a lot of teams kind of vying for that second, third, fourth position, for those Champions League positions. And really, for everything. There's everything to fight for, everything to win, everything to lose as we head into the final stretch and this restart of the Bundesliga. Well, that's been it for the Bundesliga Beard. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy the Bundesliga games this weekend. If you did, hit like, please hit subscribe. I'm going to be coming out with more videos as the Bundesliga seems to be the future of sports right now. So hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as I do. Have a good one.